Thank you for joining Wars of the Roses as we continue with Part 12, the Cabbala, Book 2 Emaistationists, from Secret Societies of All Ages, Volume 1 by Charles William Heckethorn. Book 2 Emaistationists, a changeful strife, a glowing life I weave on the whirring loom of time, the living garments of the Deity, Goethe Faust. 1. The Cabbala, 104. Its origin. The Cabbala, from the Hindoo Kapila, the inventor of the philosophy of numbers, is the summary of the labors of the sects of Judaism, and is occupied in the mystical interpretation of the scriptures and in metaphysical speculations concerning the deity and the worlds, visible and invisible. The Jews say that it was communicated to Moses by God himself. Now, although it is not at all improbable that the writer, to whom history has given the name of Moses, did leave to his successors some secret doctrines, yet the fantastic doctrines of the Cabbala concerning angels and demons are purely Chaldean. At Babylon, the Jews engrafted on monotheism the doctrine of the two principles. Daniel, the pontiff of the Magi and prophet of the Jews, may be considered as the chief founder of the Cabbala, which was conceived at Babylon and received as the forbidden fruit of the strange woman. The ancient Jews had some idea of angels, but did not ascribe to them any particular functions, though to each patriarch they assigned a special familiar spirit. The Alexandrian school made many additions to that foreign importation. Philo supplemented Daniel. The speculative portion of the Cabbala, whose foundation consists in the doctrine of emanation, was developed in that school. The philosophical systems of Pythagoras and Plato were combined with Oriental philosophy, and from these proceeded Gnosticism and Neoplatonism. 105. Date of Cabbala. The first documentary promulgation of the Cabbala may roughly be stated to have taken place within the century before and half a century after our era. The greater culture of the Jewish people, the supreme tyranny of the letter of the law, and rabbinical minuteness furthered the spread of occult theology, whose chief textbooks are the Sefer Yetzirah, or Book of the Creation, probably by Akiba, and the Zohar, the Book of Light, attributed to Simon ben Yochai, the pupil of Akiba, consisting of fantastic commentaries on the books of Moses. What farrago the book contains may be inferred from the representation it gives of God. His head is that of a very old man wearing 1,000 millions and 7,000 curls of white wool. His beard is as white as snow, reaching to his navel, and has 13 divisions, each of which comprises the greatest mysteries. The Jews did not become acquainted with it before the end of the 13th century. Akiba was a Jewish rabbi and teacher of the Mishnah. He was executed for having taken part in the insurrection of Bar Kokhba, son of the star, Numbers 24:17, in AD 135-106. The Book of the Creation. In this work, Adam considers the mystery of the universe. In his monologue, he declares the forces and powers of reason, which attempts to discover the bond which unites in a common principle all the elements of things. And in this investigation, he adopts a method different from the Mosaic. He does not descend from God to the creation, but studying the universe, seeking the unity and variety and multiplicity, the law in the phenomenon, he ascends from the creation to God, a prolific method, but which leads the Kabbalists to seek fantastic analogies between superior and inferior powers, between heaven and earth, between the things and the signs of thought. Hence arose all the arts of divination and conjuration and the most absurd superstitions. According to Kabbalistic conception, the universe, which to Pythagoras is a symbol of the mysterious virtues of numbers, is only a marvelous page on which all existing things were written by the Supreme Artificer with the first 10 numbers and the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. The 10 abstract numbers are the general forms of things, the supreme categories of ideas. Thus, number 1 represents the spirit of the living God, the universal generative power. Number 2 is the breath of the animating spirit. 3 is the aqueous, and 4 the igneous principle. The imprint of the letters on the universe is indestructible and is the only character that can enable us to discover the supreme cause, to recompose the name of God, the Logos, written on the face of the world. Nor are all the letters of equal virtue. 3, called the mothers, have the precedence and refer to the triads found in various physical and mental orders. 7 others are called double, because from them arise the things constantly opposed to one another. The remaining 12 are called simple and refer to 12 attributes of man. 107. Different kinds of Cabbala. It is of 2 kinds, theoretical and practical. The latter is engaged in the construction of talismans and amulets and is therefore totally unworthy of our notice. But it may be interesting to believers in modern charlatanism to know that this practical Cabbala was early employed in the production of spiritualistic phenomena. Divining tables furnished with a writing apparatus were common in the days of Tertullian, as we learn from his Apology. One Frederick Brentz, a Jew converted to Christianity in 1610, explained or tried to explain in a book against his former co-religionists how the Jews raised tables with stones of several hundredweights on them by means of Kabbalistic conjuration. The theoretical Cabbala is divided into the literal and dogmatic. The dogmatic is the summary of the metaphysical doctrines taught by the Kabbalistic doctors. The literal is a mystical mode of explaining sacred things by a peculiar use of the letters of words. This literal Cabbala, called the Mishnah, is again subdivided into 3 branches, the first considering words according to the numerical value of the letters composing them. This branch is called Gematria, and for an example of it, the reader is referred to Mithras, the name of the sun, whose letters make up the number 365, the number of days during which the sun performs his course. The second branch is called Notarikon, and is a mode of constructing one word out of the initials or finals of many. Thus of the sentence in Deuteronomy 30:12, "Who shall go up for us to heaven?" In Hebrew, seen here, the initial letters of each word are taken to form the word seen here, circumcision. The third mode is called Temura, or permutation of letters, such as is familiarly known as an anagram. 108. Visions of Ezekiel. Kabbalistic terms and inventions, not destitute of poetic ideas, lent themselves to the requirements of the mystics, sectaries, and alchemists. It suffices to consider that portion of the system whose object is the study of the visions of Ezekiel, to form an idea of the fantastic and mythological wealth of the Kabbalah. This branch of the Kabbalah is called the Merkava. In the visions of Ezekiel, God is seated on a throne, surrounded with strange winged figures, the man, the bull, the lion, and the eagle, 4 zodiacal signs like the glory which he saw by the river of Chebar, that is, among the Chaldeans, famous for their astronomical knowledge. The rabbis call the visions the description of the celestial car and discover therein profound mysteries. Maimonides reduced those visions to the astronomical ideas of his time. The Kabbalah surrounded them with its innumerable hosts of angels. Besides the angels that preside over the stars, elements, virtues, vices, passions, the lower world is peopled by genii of both sexes, holding a position between angels and men, the elemental spirits of the Rosicrucians. The good angels are under the command of Metatron, also called Sarhapanim, the angel of the divine countenance. The evil angels are subject to Samuel, or Satan, the angel of death. Besides the Indian metempsychosis, the Kabbalists admit another, which they call impregnation, consisting in a union of several souls in one body, which takes place when any soul needs the assistance of others to attain to the beatific vision. 109. The creation out of nothing. The primitive being is called the Ancient of Days, the ancient ring of light. Incomprehensible, infinite, eternal, a closed eye. Before he manifested himself, all things were in him, and he was called the Nothing, the Zero World. Before the creation of the world, the primitive light of God, nothing, filled all, so that there was no void. But when the Supreme Being determined to manifest his perfections, he withdrew into himself and let go forth the first emanation, a ray of light, which is the cause and beginning of all that exists, and combines the generative and conceptive forces. He commenced by forming an imperceptible point, the point world. Then with that thought he constructed a holy and mysterious form, and finally covered it with a rich vestment, the universe. From the generative and conceptive forces issued forth the firstborn of God, the universal form, the creator, preserver, and animating principle of the world, Adam Kadmon called the macrocosm. Whilst man, born out of and living in it, and comprising in fact what the typical or celestial man comprises potentially, is called the microcosm. But before the Ein Sof or infinite revealed himself in that form of the primitive man, other emanations, other worlds had succeeded each other, which were called sparks, which grew fainter the more distant they were from the center of emanation. Around Adam Kadmon were formed the countless circles of posterior emanations, which are not beings having a life of their own, but attributes of God, vessels of omnipotence, types of creation. The 10 emanations from Adam Kadmon are called Sephiroth, the powers of Philo and the eons of the Gnostics. 110. Revival of Kabbalistic doctrines. As among Christians the Apocalypse, so among Jews the Cabbala has always had its devoted students. Such a one was Lobel, d. 1609, who was chief rabbi at Prague and considered such a saint that no being born of woman was thought fit to wait on him. He was attended by a servitor produced by magic or a slave formed of clay. Being deeply versed in all the mysteries of the Cabbala, he was endowed with supernatural powers, but he, wisely perhaps, kept his knowledge to himself. He did not even have pupils. But about the middle of the last century, Jacob Frank, originally a distiller in Poland, collected around him a crowd of Jewish followers in Podolia who, abjuring rabbinical dogmatism, adopted the mystical teaching of the Cabbala. The book Zohar was the basis of their doctrines, whence they were called Zoharists, the illuminated, the Roman Catholic clergy, who in these doctrines saw an approach to Christianity, at first protected them. But on the death of the Bishop of Podolia, they were persecuted by the rabbis, so that they had to disperse, and Frank himself was imprisoned until 1773, when he was released by the Russians. He then tried to establish himself at Vienna, but being driven thence, found a refuge at Offenbach near Frankfurt, where he gathered many followers and lived in great style as he received liberal subsidies from the Jews. He died in 1791 when the society was dissolved. A few remnants may still be found in Poland, where they are known as Christian Jews. They form a kind of religious order, practicing certain Jewish rites and professing mystical doctrines kept secret from outsiders. Another Kabbalistic sect was formed about the same time, 1740, by Israel of Podolia, calling themselves the New Saints. They professed to work miracles by using the Kabbalistic name of Jehovah. Israel had great success and left 40,000 followers. Frederick Barth and C. Frederick Macaulay, the former in his Introduction to Cornelius Agrippa's Cabbala, and the latter in his Travels Through Germany and Switzerland, 1781, both mention the Cabbala of the Capuchin Father Tertius of Ratisbon, written in Latin, which he utilized for fortune-telling. A somewhat similar Cabbala was published circa 1790 in the Delphic Oracle, edited by Professor K. For humbug never waneth when folly lends its help. The Cabbala was estimated at its true value by the Jesuit Pererius, 1535 to 1610, who in his book De Magia calls it an unscientific, silly and ridiculous system. And yet in the last quarter of this century, Alphonse Louis Constant, who wrote under the pseudonym of Eliphas Levi Zahed, a number of books which are highly esteemed by modern students of occult matters, performed by means of Kabbalistic power, the ceremonial evocation of Apollonius of Tyana, and was patronized, among other people of note, by Lord Lytton, who had him down to Nebworth. Some forms of superstition do die hard. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment, and if you can, please consider donating to Wars of the Roses. Links to PayPal and Patreon are in the description. Thank you so very much.